learning to, even in our, senior years, still learning to work with it. Nothing is written in stone. There are no templates. Every day is a new day in with those relationships. Um, so the questions that come are sometimes so universal in nature. It's not very, very particular. The question may be particular, but the issues involved are so much to do with the all of us trying to get our arithmetic right between us and our own compatriots within our generation and with the lower generation, younger one, and sometimes with the one before us, because many of us find ourselves sandwiched between being seniors, having super seniors in our lives, and having younger people in our lives. So this is the place that we hope we air the question. It's airing, caring, sharing. But we not just air the question, we also look at its uske sab, facets, pehlu, as they call it. Look at them closely to see, because there is no one templatized answer for anything. And basically, what we are really looking for is in our advancing years, how to still feel connected, relevant, wanted, contribute to society, and yet not feel pressured to do anything, because we have done a lot of work, whether it's in our offices or in our homes, in our families, in our societies. We have done a lot. So Dil Ki Baatein also looks at finding stable ground on which we can stand, clearing up our communication, remaining relevant, available to younger people, but not getting hijacked, as we saw in some earlier questions. Not getting caught up with the finger wagging shoulds that younger people or our own compatriots will keep telling us, nahi, aise nahi hota hai, aise nahi hona chahiye, aisa hona chahiye. Not getting caught up with that too much. So this week's theme, as I had shared last time, is the issue of you as a grandparent, with maybe a baby's on the way or there are small babies. How much of you is available, wants to be available, can be available for babysitting? How much? What quantum? And hi, Samir has joined. Hi, Samir. Good evening.
Hi.
Yeah, hi. So I'll just read you first the question, the specific question that has come, and then we'll talk in detail about the issues that come out from it. So this person says, hello, ma'am. My husband and I have retired just 4 months ago after over 35 years of service. We have fulfilled many duties as parents and towards our elders too, with love and commitment. We have at last to travel and pursue our hobbies and even learn some new skills that we are interested in. We are quite fit and plan to undertake treks, travel to remote areas, and maybe give some time to an NGO there while we have health on our side. Okay, this is the question. But to our surprise, our son as well as daughter, who have had children in the last 2 years, have assumed uh, that now we are free and can spend large parts of the year with them away from our own home and country, babysitting for the next 5 to 6 years before the children go to preschool. So, and I won't read that, she's given a lot of detail about how they feel that if they send them to daycare, they get colds and coughs and eye infections, and they want to postpone the daycare thing. That's why this 5 to 6 years bandwidth. This was, she says, this was never discussed with us, and we realize it has just been assumed. I know that this may be the norm, she says, in families, and some people really are prepared and happy to, and look forward to spending their retirement fully in this way. But frankly, we had no such plans to become full-time grandparents in this way. Do you think we can convey this to our children, or will this spoil the relationship permanently? This is Aisha M. Aisha M has written this thing, this query. So yes, as she says, there are, everybody doesn't have the same response to grandchildren. There'll be at one end of the spectrum people who are really chasing their children to have children. Have them. We are there for you. Don't be worried. We are there. Willing to be full time, not just grandparents, but babysitters, really hands on, almost second parenthood. That's one end of the spectrum. There will be in between some who will say partially, yes, will be available. And then there is somebody like this who feels that this was never discussed and I have no intention of being full. I have plans. This person feels I have plans. It's my time now. And my mind particularly, my eye particularly caught on this while we still have health on our side. It is a small window really, right? After 60, 61 years and has retired. It's a small window of uh, uh, fitness and health where you may still undertake things like travel, strenuous travel and treks and things like this. Uh, and then there may be one absolute end of the spectrum who has made it clear from the beginning, if you're having children, it's on your own time. I may dabble, I may be a godparent, I may sometimes come, sometimes. Quite clear that I'm not into a second round of full-time parenting. So this say roughly these four stages of willingness or unwillingness to grandparent. My point is that there are 9 months in which one can discuss this. So this assumption cannot be, maybe you assume as a young person, you assume ki grandparents, you see it all around you. I do see people putting their lives completely they are in a carry-on bag. They live in a carry-on bag. If my daughter in Singapore wants me, I will be there. If my son in the US wants me, I'll be there. Maybe they see a lot of that, of people really quite happy to wind up everything and go and stay. There is also it's also economic considerations in the sense that if you are dependent on your children or even living in the same house, then it's kind of becomes built into the system. And yet, I would still say, just because you're economically dependent on your children, it does not mean that you have to be so completely, what do you say? You cannot become their humble servants, to not mince my words. You can't say that, okay, I'm staying in your house or you have bought me a house, you're paying my EMIs, whatever your arrangements with your children are. It cannot be returned with reluctant EMIs of this kind. Even that will have to be discussed. So yes, it is more difficult to say no if you live in the same house and you are dependent on your children. But having said that, I'm saying you still have the right to have architectured your life in a certain way, at least not fully taken for granted. Your babysitting time and energies. So to start with, I would say that if there are any young people listening, even on the YouTube channel, this has to be a serious conversation. This has to be a conversation. We are planning to have a baby, or we are pregnant with a baby. And how much of this would you be able to? This is, I would say, for if you have considerations like don't want to send it to a creche. I don't want to send this little thing to a creche where he or she will get all the, passing, especially in the Western world, closed doors, all the little coughs and sniffles and colds and all of that. That's a very important consideration, but there is no scope to assume that your priorities as a parent will immediately become your parents' priorities. It cannot be that way. Maybe it was like that traditionally. Maybe people were, sucking it up and doing it. Ki nahi, this is our next calling. This is what we have to do. But in this day and age, it's very important that this thing is given clear, not beating around the bush. I assumed, you assumed, I thought you would understand, I thought you would. None of that. It really has to be how much of this picture can you be part of? I would like you to be fully in my house and fully look after my kids. That's my maximum I would love. Which of this, how much of it can you do? And the onus is also on us as, say, as you head towards retirement, to let it be known, to your children what it is that you're really now yearning to do. You're not planning to just fall off a cliff and be saved by your children saying, here, now there's relevance, here there's work, here there's this child, now do this. There may be completely, as in the case of Aisha, so many other plans clearly in your mind. There are people who register for PhDs, at 61 and 62 after retirement. And the health and energy thing is another factor altogether, but that is a more definable. Suppose you say, no, I don't feel the energy, I don't have it. I have ailments, I can't do this. That's very clear cut. But I'm fit, I'm able, but I want to use my fitness and abilities for other things. So I can maybe offer this. This is what I can do. Often there are two sets of grandparents who are called upon. You can come up with some kind of timeline, timetable for which you are available to your children. I'm saying to Aisha also that be prepared to for some sulking. If just now they are so bashing on, assuming that you will be fully available and that you don't have any, post-retirement plans which involve only you and your spouse, I mean, the two of you. If it's news to them, complete news to them, be prepared for a little bit of sulking. And also be prepared for getting back some of the things we used to do to our children, saying, look at so-and-so's son, look at so-and-so's daughter, how well they're doing this, that. Your children may point out to you, are my neighbors so-and-so, they've come and stayed for 3 years. Or my neighbor's parents have, I can drop the children off from 8 to 8 in their house. You might get examples, glorious examples of people. Very good if that is there for somebody. But we have to remember, we could be on the spectrum anywhere. We could be wanting to be full-time and we could not want to be full-time babysitters. I feel that this while you're a valuable support system, no doubt that if your children want you to be involved, they do think that you'll bring not just your presence to see that they don't fall. You're bringing your whole personality, your sanskar, all the stuff that you bring to a grandchild. You are being asked to do that too. And you're a valuable support system. But without your prior consent or being consulted, I would say is today not a viable. It's not viable. Forget about whether it is, you should consider me. Don't you think I have a life? It's not viable if you're not, if you have other plans and you're not fully up for it. So you have the right as the senior in the situation, to set your boundaries, prioritize your own needs. You can give a year's, somebody like a person who's going trekking might know which are the months that they will go. It is related to climate and all of that. You could say that these months, or these over the next year, these are the three treks that we want to do. How do we work around this? What is your plan B? I can't be fully your plan B. What are your other plans? One has to have the nerves to also be, if not scolded, but at least looked upon with, oh my God, you're ditching me. You are not ditching anybody. You're not ditching anybody. Cannot be one-sided that somebody assumes the maximum from you And when you say, I can't give you the maximum, that is not ditching, first of all, you know. Um, when we talk about clarifying the communication, it's important that even if you're feeling like Aisha's, I can see the tone of slight, now, if not outraged, like really, really not, is she's not happy with being taken for granted like this. She's not outraged. She's a bit mystified. She's, but one will have to be careful to not get into what could turn into a tu meme conversation. Forget saying, how could you assume this? I'm saying when we talk about clarifying our communication, in your mind, you might be outraged. You and your spouse may say, wow, bhai, these people have just assumed this thing. You may tell your best friend also. But it is wise and kind also to not say this to your children who are embarking on a huge project of their life, which is starting a family. So it's not the right time, I feel, to hold up a mirror and say, see what you're doing. Can you see how insensitive you're sounding, etc., etc. But with your actions, it may come across. If your children, uh, find that they've run into a bit of a speed breaker in their plans by you saying, these months, I will be doing this thing. So how could we work this out? I think it is a safer and uh, it's a bypass. It's a bypass. Instead of head on saying, how could you? How could you? It may give the grown children a chance to say, wow, this is something we'll have to consider, that we have to think. They may in their own internal thing be very huffy and puffy and say, my God, never expected these people to say no. और ये ट्रैकिंग का क्या नया भूत है, whatever. But face to face, I don't think this is an area in which you have to be, okay, now let the gloves be off and let's bash this one out. Too delicate a scene and too much is in the balance. Most of us don't want to get into a situation where then you feel almost cut off from their new life, their new child, their new priorities. You don't want to be cut off from it at all. So I would say to tread carefully and not go into, in Marathi we call it Tattvacha Prashna. We in Maharashtra we're very big on this, but the principle of the thing, and of course there's a principle of the thing, but there's no need, I think, to um, what is it? Wrestle the next generation to the floor and say, have you got the point of why you shouldn't be doing this? I think it's more. I'm not being political here. I'm not saying be diplomatic and political. I'm just saying it is just less aggravation and you come up with a game plan. I'm available for this. How could you even assume I'm available for more? I feel is to be kept out of the communication. However much you are feeling that this is crazy. And when will you grow up and I'm not your wet nurse anymore? Whatever horrible thoughts start coming in your head. Don't just give it any space, I feel, to say this. But your actions have to make the person wonder, wow, how did I assume this? Next time I will not, May not do it with good grace. Maybe sulky a little bit. Maybe you will get examples of, see, this auntie and that uncle, how much they have stepped up. You may get those examples too. But important not to rise to the bait, not to turn this into a conversation where you are, this home truths conversation, to get down to the principle of the thing. I feel that, when we talk about clarifying our communication, man, some of us are brought up to clarifying means, मैंने साफ बोल दिया. That is not clarifying your communication. I told my daughter without anything. One has to handle things gently and yet not get lost in the game is very important, I think, with the next generation. And in a delicate world where they are looking at having a child, They are not just saying, we are moving house and will you come for 3 months and help us pack up. There are no humans involved in that. Young, small, grandchildren. There's no emotional stuff involved. Here, there's very heavy duty emotional stuff. And if you want them to respect your boundaries, never say the word respect my boundaries in such things, because then that only the word boundaries sticks. Here I'm having a baby, you're talking about your boundaries. It can quickly go into that zone, is what I feel. So I think one has to be a little, I hesitate to use the word diplomatic because people use the word political and diplomatic as cunning or manipulative. Not at all that. I'm not talking about manipulating. I'm talking about being very careful with what words you will use, which are in here, and what you will actually say. And if the aim is to get past this thing and find a good way that even you and they uh, can benefit from your involvement, then it's important not to turn it into a how did you not, तब क्या हो रहा था, तब क्यों नहीं सोचा, पहले क्यों नहीं पूछा, you've never been interested in me. Not the time to bring out past. And I'm saying this to both generations, even the younger generation. Not the time to say you were never there for me. That is really too delicate a time to use this, the coming of a baby, as a time to settle old scores and dig up the past, and it's of no use to anybody. So communication is the key. Communication without that whole मैंने तो बोल दिया kind of mode. I think it's important if you're coming close to retirement and you see that this is something that may come up, is to let your kids know what you're going to do with your retirement, what your plans are. Uh, they're so caught up in their own lives that maybe they've sort of lost track of what you have. Some children are very, very connected with their parents, and they know, oh, I know, but at 60, my mother's bucket list is this. She's going to do this. She's going to do that. But if they're not, then it's important to find ways to communicate what you are currently looking forward to doing, what your preoccupations are, so that nothing is a sudden big fat surprise. ये कहाँ से आया? It's not like that. It's very hurtful to hear from your own child. Acha, since when? Since when are you interested in a PhD? Since before you were born, yeah, maybe you'll feel like saying, this is something I put on the back burner while I was working. Now I want to do it now. So before the flashpoint comes, important to let them know what your next 3-4 years are going to look like to you. Ideally, God willing, what your next 2-3 years, 3-4 years will look like. Looking at other professional childcare services, of course, we don't need to tell them, because they have, in Aisha's case, they've said, we don't want those childcare services. We want you. Because those childcare services have this problems. And enough of our peer group has imported their parents and gone past that childcare route. At least the child is a little robust and built up the immunity and all of that. I have I'll just read this. So I have a book that, I'm not promoting my own book. This is a book called Always a Parent. But I have a chapter. It's a much bigger point in this chapter about the arrival of the next generation and how much you want to be involved, you can't be involved. There are things in it about people becoming full-time all-day caregivers to the children, babysitters, but being on tenterhooks because your children, when they come back, they are, saying, have you done it this way? Have you done it that way? Have you indulged them too much? Did you put them to sleep at the right time? So they are almost on duty and have to almost be debriefed all those things are in this, but I won't go into that here. I'm just going to read out a small thing about the. One second. Yeah. So the turning point. What is a turning point for such equations? And cleaning up your communication. These are two things at the end of every chapter of this book. I have a turning point. What is the pivot point, and what is the how do you clean up your communication? And in this particular thing, I feel that some people may be willing to stop all other activities once the grandchild arrives. It's very early in the game that your children will get a sense of that. If you are a person who's waiting on the edges and saying, waiting and don't worry about babysitting. Even if you're in Iceland, I'll come and do it. So for you to quite early in the game, locate where you are in this, how much you are willing to do, and communicate how much you're willing to do. This is one important thing. So I have quoted a lady who says, how are we supposed to find that fine balance between being hands-on grandparents, are available for all contingencies, and yet not being interfering or clingy? On top of it, people say, have your own interests and pursuits at your own age. One day I'm expected to be, but suddenly fully available. On another day, I must mind my own business and find my own meaning, not turning to my children. So it is a double-edged thing, and the turning point is for you before you're presented with a either or option to say that this is what I'd like to do with my next few years. I think very important to bring that up right there. And cleaning up your communication is, so I'll give you the example. I've got an example here of a person who decided to move closer, sell up and move closer to where her two children's families, son and daughter, daughter and son-in-law, were within the same city, move closer so that her house could be a kind of, she remained living in her own house. She's a researcher. She's a person who's a researcher, taken on some new research. But her house is that key drop place. One maid comes and takes the keys, makes the chapatis here. And she's the in-between house where it's easy for their systems to run because you are there. And I very much agreed to do that. And sometimes for children to come in before the parents come. But it is still, she says, that it's still, I don't count it as full-time babysitting, because if I have a conference or an event or a library meeting, I can tell my children that on these days, none of this I can do. And they'll do something around it. So there is that ability to clean up the communication and say, I want to be there for you, but here are my limitations. I think it's as simple as that. I want to be there for you, but here are my limitations. She says, now they are 9, 13, and 16, and we have managed with almost no misunderstanding. Now, these children who she spoke about as smallish babies in her life, they are 9, 13, and 16. And basically, my own boundaries were respected by my daughters as well as their husbands, the spouses of her children, basically. Yeah. Yeah. As for the issue of, she says that I told them that I will not be answerable. Don't come home and say, ye kyun nahi hua, wo kyun nahi hua. Not answerable. I'll do it if you trust me to be the point of contact for your maids and your children and the rickshaw driver to come and pick and drop. In Marathi, she said to me, I told them, माझी parade nahi काढायची. मेरा parade mat nikalna. If I do something my way, which isn't your way, So I think it's important that we don't lose ourselves in the game. of grandparenting. And the fear of, I think a lot of people are afraid that if you say no, you will get, they'll make do without you, and then it's almost like you've been cut off. Uh, and with that fear, you also end up doing stuff. I think it's important to spell out all of these anxieties if you have that kind of relationship with your child. What else did I have? One thing is that um, when if you feel stuck, the word stuck, should we be stuck with this? Then it's a very important diagnostic word for you. If you're feeling stuck, then something has to. Don't use the word with your child, with your grown child, maybe. I'm not going to get stuck. It's very hard to hear this word if you're expecting a baby and your parent is talking about being stuck. Don't use the word. But if you inside are feeling, suddenly as if you've just been put in some kind of confinement when you had other plans in life, feeling stuck, then it's all the more important to come up with something which works for both sets of people. Yeah, that's broadly what I feel Aisha, anybody in this position needs to do. That while you feel happy that your children are going to think that you are the material to be around their children and bring them up, that's great, and one can really express one's gratitude for that. But I have other plans. Without saying it, has to be communicated. I have other plans. And this Aisha's letter, I think, is a warning to all of us that let this I have other plans conversation be in the air before it is required of you to come and do this full-time service. To give a large chunk of your age, early aging period. There is one last thing that people fear कि मैं अभी नहीं बोलूंगी तो फिर बाद में मेरा कोई नहीं करेगा, which is terribly transactional, but it's very natural to fear that. But that's not how, I don't think that's how it's not in the balance. It's not a negotiation, really. You're not doing this to earn later, brownie points so that which you can call in later when you're sick and infirm and you say, I looked after your children and now you better look after. It doesn't work like that. If you have a slightly broken down relationship, however much you do, that may not materialize. And if you have a better relationship, that may materialize, but you will not have to have paid with in currency that you're not willing to spend, whether it's your time or your energy or your money or your fitness years of last few years of fitness. Both these things, I think, operate that it's not a negotiation. And to do it out of fear is finally, then I think it will trickle into the relationship with the child, with the parents, with everybody. If you're doing it, okay, I don't dare say no, so I'm going to do it. Difficult. I think not an ideal, much less than ideal situation. So to conclude, to say, do what you promise to do what you think works for you without getting completely hijacked, all your programs for yourself hijacked. Yes, okay, come, let's open this to people here. Any thoughts on this? Any experiences with this? Anything that you agree with, don't agree with? I know people who say no, there's no option to say no. There isn't, because your children will never forgive you. The people who have that clear thing that nahi, tum abhi atak gaye. You just better put a good face on it and do it. There are some people who think like that and will not dare to question this. But there are much better, I think there are much better in between layered ways to work arounds where everybody gets something out of it and doesn't feel hijacked, as I call it. Yeah, anybody has anything to say? Yes, Dipali. Yeah.
Yeah, my son and his family were. He was on a sabbatical here for a year when his younger child was a few months old and the older one was 4. And every weekend it was assumed that the older one would stay with us.
Mhm.
Now, a high energy 4-year-old
Mhm.
was exhausting. So then we said, okay, well, one day works, 2 days don't work for us.
You could say this.
And I had to say it because I was going mad.
Mm, mm,
And my
mm,
husband was traveling a whole lot.
mm,
And
mm,
I
mm.
mean, what? And after all, it's their child. Weekends are when they're supposed to be free for their child.
Mm.
Otherwise, the child was going to preschool.
Yeah.
And they had a nanny for the younger one.
Huh, huh.
So it's not that they didn't have systems,
Right.
but it was assumed that. And I mean, if you come over too, it would have been lovely, that all of us are
Yeah.
around
Yeah.
bonding together. But it's as
True.
though you're just handing over the kid
Mm, 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 mm,
to make space for your own activities, which was unfair. We say
mm.
1 day is fine, 2 days is just too much. We're not
Yeah.
getting younger, right?
Yeah.
Nobody
Yeah.
gets younger. But
How was
for
that
both
received?
deliveries, my daughter-in-law wanted me to come.
Mhm, mhm,
Okay. Now, even now, recently at my younger son's wedding, like it was at a farmhouse, and we were all staying at a hotel nearby. And there was supposed to be some all-night dancing going on and whatnot.
mhm.
Ma, can you take the kids to the hotel? I said, no, I can't. A, I was exhausted. B, I cannot leave the children alone in a hotel room.
Yeah.
It was not a connected room. So there were so many things which, I mean,
Didn't work for you. Didn't work for you.
it didn't work for me. And I mean, it was my son who was getting married, so I was dead on my feet as it is.
Yeah.
And I realized that sometimes if you say no occasionally, then you're not presumed upon all the time.
Mm,
If you say yes all the time, you are trampled upon, even if it's your own kith and kin. They assume that
mm.
Ma is always there. I mean,
Sunita,
Ma is human.
Sunita
Ma
laughing.
is human.
Uh,
No, you can laugh, it's
yeah.
true.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Yeah.
there
Yeah.
are times when, shall I tell you what upsets me the most about these situations is that you have an inner dialogue with yourself where you don't like yourself very much for being this person who is not approving of or liking her own child, whom she thought she loved a lot, but I don't like this person very much, you know.
I know
So
exactly.
it's
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. So it's and
And
you
also you
want to,
feel,
I find it
huh.
easier to love them at a distance.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Distant
Yeah.
mountains. There's a Marathi saying, Durun Dongar Sajre. You celebrate the mountains from far, they look lovely, but you don't
Ah,
go trying to climb them.
you're not struggling climbing up that damn mountain every day.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Did
it's
that
it's
go
a
down
mixed
well?
bag. I mean,
Could
it's a
you,
very mixed bag.
but could it be this particular thing you could, it didn't, it got, yani, pach gaya. It was
Huh.
accepted. Right, right. Yeah.
Because then my daughter-in-law came with the kids and my son was there. I mean, ठीक है, it was his brother's wedding.
हाँ.
कितना डांस करोगे यार वैसे भी ठीक है बहुत पार्टी हो गई तुम नहीं आई you missed all the grand parties
Yeah.
but it can get tricky. It can get very very tricky because I mean I also find that they are very ready to palm off their children onto us maybe, which is not
Right?
a happy thing. I mean, it sounds rude, but
Yeah,
I think they need to. The child should not feel that she's either child should not feel that she's somebody who is being palmed off onto grandparents.
of course.
What does the child feel? The child's enthusiasm.
Yeah.
The child should also feel that yeah, it's a treat to be there or whatever.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's a tricky. I mean,
But
okay,
tell me one thing, Dipali, an offshoot
हाँ
question.
बोलो.
That does it help to also not be very harsh on oneself and try and pack in a lot of things and be cook and court jester and, the hours that a child is with you, to try and maximize and make them feel so good. Did you find yourself slowly also being able to say, now I have to be horizontal and I have to put a putty on my head? Now you occupy yourself. Did you find yourself swinging from trying to make those few hours
I
fantastic?
was, I mean, we would have fun. We'd have fun, but then there are a lot of routine things which you have to do. Grandchild or no
Right,
grandchild in the
right,
house, right? You
right.
have to maintain routines. You have to create space for whichever additional member is around,
Correct, correct.
whether it be a dearly loved child. And
Yeah.
yes, we have played a lot. I mean, he played Ludo or whatever, all kinds of things and creative
Mm-hmm.
things. And
Mm-hmm.
it's been fun as well, no doubt. But
But
if the
yours,
son
yeah.
हाँ, presumes कि आप जहाँ रहते हो आप अपने eye specialist के यहाँ ले जाओ
Mm-hmm.
because the child was complaining of itchy eyes, then we've done it. But
Mm-hmm.
I also resented it. I mean, your child's medical issues is something you have to deal with.
Mm-hmm.
Assuming that, we have our eye specialist, we can take her, which we
Mm-hmm.
did. But
Mm-hmm.
there are resentments which remain in the head, which
Okay.
should not. I mean, hell with it. Yeah, we took her.
Yeah.
She was very fascinated. Is he the eye doctor? Is he the eye doctor?
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
quite an experience.
But you're saying to be able to say no and not feel guilty about it.
Yeah,
Huh?
yeah,
Is something
yeah.
to.
It's doable
Huh.
because I
Hmm.
mean, I will not be presumed upon. Now I'm old enough to say no.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
I've said yes enough
Okay.
to
Okay.
many things.
Yeah.
Okay, I will be a tough cookie. You can
Work
like it or
around that.
hate it. It's
Work around
okay.
it.
I
Yeah.
don't care.
Yeah. Yeah.
I also think that being very, very sure that you maintain your economic independence is central,
Yeah.
and also that you know that yes, there are other children in the background. It's okay.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
You
Hmm.
know,
Hmm.
because
Hmm.
this one is as it is so far away. This one is not going to be here,
A lot. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Yeah. Hmm. Hmm.
although my NRI brother was there for my father, he spent months when my father was ill. I mean, he poor chap died first, but
Hmm. Hmm.
he actually came and did a lot for my dad. So it's not
Hmm.
that it's not doable. It's the
Hmm.
person.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the person's spouse.
Yeah. Yeah.
The I mean, he had retired by then, so he could
And
do
this
it.
and
All
this
these
whole business of
factors.
small children is very, very tricky, right? When there's small children in the equation, isn't it? Where
Oh yes.
that in the sense uh, the first time you say no about something is I struggle with it too. So the first time you say no, part of you misses the fact that, I mean, oh, I have something else, so I can't accommodate this. Part of you is feeling that little guilt about not being available on when when they're in the middle of something.
Hmm.
So, but I think the important thing is to know your intentions are right, know your limitations, what you do. I think knowing our limitations is very important for seniors.
Oh yes.
Actual physical, mental, emotional, and financial limitations.
And
Very
once you are extremely fatigued, you are no good to man or beast or
yeah,
child.
then
Yeah.
you're just a grumpy
So
granny. Yeah.
self protection is also very, very
Mm,
important.
mm, mm, mm. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's right. Anyone has anything? Sunita, you have something to say? I saw you
Yeah,
grinning.
no,
Grinning.
I like the way you dealt with the topic. And, some important things I felt was to put it properly across, like, that because, like you said, it's a very delicate
Time.
subject,
Yeah.
like to put your wishes out there clearly may not be the right thing to do, like it's
Your
sensitively,
limitations. Your
because
limitations.
there's always that fear that later they may not involve you in anything, thinking you want your own time and stuff like that.
Yeah. Yes.
So
I'm
Yeah, I
learning and growing from both sides. I mean, if things
right.
are so
Yeah.
even keel, we'll have
Yeah.
to.
And it's not like so black and white, no, because
Yeah.
things are going through their mind also, right? It may not, I mean, they will respect
Hmm.
your desires, and it's not that they're going to feel bad about it, I'm sure,
Very wrong.
because
It may be a
they are
surprise.
also capable of reasoning, no?
Correct, correct. So, like, if this lady
Mhm.
Aisha chooses to, say this, I'm
Yeah.
available in these. First of all, to introduce the idea that I'm available in pockets and see how
Yes.
to use those pockets. These are, and
Yeah.
so it's in your hands which time you're giving to somebody.
Yeah. 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 And fatigue and is a real thing. Like as you grow older, you just can't cope. One headache and then you're of no use for anything or anybody, and yeah, kids can be very demanding. I don't know whether you need to entertain them all the time, or is it okay to let them feel bored.
Hmm.
Like I used to tell my mom when I was a kid, I still remember I used to say, I'm feeling bored, so she would say, go stand on your head. you know I don't know if you can tell that to your
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
grandchild. Suddenly you become very formal with I don't know whether it's like you become formal or what it is. I don't know, I'm not a grandmother yet myself,
Huh, huh, yeah.
but at some point, you start uh, at one point you are giving your kids, like, you give it to them while you're bringing them up, but at some point suddenly you're very careful about what you say, and I don't know when that transition happens.
Yeah.
Like you want to say
Yeah.
only the right things and you don't want to hurt them. And
Yes. Yeah, yeah. I mean, but it's good. It's clarifying. You don't have to walk on eggshells, but one doesn't have to speak every thought out. I think it's important.
yeah,
Mhm.
that is,
Yeah.
yeah, that's what I found was very
All
useful.
the counsel kind of,
You
yeah.
don't have to say whatever comes to your
Yeah.
mind.
Yeah. Yes,
Yeah,
Deepaji. Ah,
Sunita. Yeah, what I
Yeah.
was saying was that when you talk about the child not needing to be entertained all the time,
hmm.
Huh.
today's today the children have the option of screens, which is
Yeah.
also disapproved of.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Right.
I also, as a parent or as a grandmother, I I also believe in rationing it, but sometimes even for the parents it's the last resort. Sometimes even for the grandparents it's the last resort, and you can
Yeah.
have Peppa Pig coming out of your ears. It's but
Yes, yes. In her
but
clip action.
sometimes to survive, I see that the parents also resorting to giving them their iPads or
Yes, yes.
whatever. But
Yes, 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 yes.
it's
Without
you
any
know
fear.
it's also another factor. It's another complication in today's world. At
Yeah.
least
Hmm.
if they're reading, which is what we used to do. My mother used to get so sick of my reading some books that she used to hide them. Say,
Hmm.
mother, why? I'm only reading. But
Hmm. Hmm.
yeah,
Hmm. Yeah.
she had her own concepts. We
Yeah.
all do.
Yeah.
So
Right.
Yeah.
Okay,
it's a
good.
very tricky path.
Anything that I feel when somebody starts feeling, my God, I've all the letters that we've got so far, all this 5, 6 questions, what we've done 5 weeks, I think. When somebody starts feeling questioning their entire uh, value system, then it's hard on. I mean, okay, it shakes us up. It's good for all of us once in a while to question our value system. But the questions that have come are so much to do also with being made to feel that you got it all wrong. That I think
Hmm.
that one should not succumb to. We haven't
Hmm.
come this far by having got it all wrong, basically. So, okay, I'm willing to listen to, like the person. Who are we running out of time? I'm sort of conversing on. No, no, it's
Hmm.
just that all the, we loop back after at every session to this place where those shoulds and shouldn'ts, you do not need to feel those shoulds. You should and you shouldn't. Whether it was the lady who
Correct.
was, being told to in her retirement to do more fruitful things than watching TV, or the guy who was told that you cannot find new love. All of those
Hmm.
things, the shouldn'ts, I think we have to, they are diagnostic words. coming from whether it's your own compatriots or the younger generation or the super seniors above us. This shouldn't finger wagging. You, it's a sure sign, it's diagnostic, and this sure sign that this should be up for discussion. You cannot be prescriptive with me, shouldn't. I feel those should are not, they can't be the verb, they can't be the verb in the sentence, you know. Okay, I think we're coming to the end of our hour. I'll quickly tell, is the thing on the chat? How to join up, where to
It's there.
call.
The link is there.
The link.
Yes, the link and the number is there on
And
the
the
chat.
number. Yeah,
People can just go and have a look at it.
And I'll just quickly tell you about our next week's theme. It is about grown children coming back to stay with older parents in the same house for whatever circumstances. Lost their job, marriage fell apart, anything. From the pandemic time, this has been quite a bit of a thing of grown children coming back to stay with older parents in the same house, be it their need or the senior's need. Grown child may have come back because the senior needs you. What are the change equations and rules of engagement? This is what we'll look at. The question that has come is related to this. We'll look at this next Friday next year. We are now meeting in the next fresh new year.
Yeah.
Yeah? Have a good week, everybody. And
Thank
You
you.
too.
thank you.